You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network. Are you listening to this podcast on your commute to work, on a walk to the store? Do you ever think about the strangers around you and how your life could change by saying hello? That's the premise of Lincoln Center Theater's new play, The Coast Starlight. Set aboard a long-distance train, the play examines the power of human connection and the ways in which we guess at each other's lives. As a special offer to our listeners, all tickets for the month of February are just $35. To purchase tickets for The Coast Starlight, visit telechargeoffers.com and use code COAST35. Previews begin February 16th. For more information, visit lct.org.
Thanks to the Xfinity 10G network, my little brother's friends won't leave our house. When I was their age, internet with basically no interruptions was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas.
You, at the end of the day, can only control yourself. You have no control over other people. But collectively, I think we do, either on a subtle level or maybe on an obvious level, influence the kind of overall experience that we're all experiencing on this earth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals. And Heather and I started out as two perfect strangers, just like Balky, who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success.
This is the first time you've ever mentioned Balky.
Really?
I can't believe it took us almost a year and a half for that to come up.
Come on, perfect strangers. That was
I know.
Right? I've Bronson Pinchot, right? That was the actor's name?
Yeah, see, that's not...
I believe.
That's not my level of expertise. Okay, wait. So we're here for a reason.
Are we? Yes, we are.
We are. I am so excited. So we're veering a tiny bit. We're doing some parallel interviewing today, and I'm super excited about it. We have Sami Moog with us, and Sami was born and raised on the East Coast, but spent most of his adult life traveling and living abroad. His passion for new cultures and places keeps him engaged and motivated to explore. That is my kind of person. I'm just going to say that out loud. Yes, please. He manages this adventurous life while working as a content creator and copywriter for a tech company specializing in fintech and artificial intelligence, which I'm also super curious about. But here's the reason we have Sami here today. Sami discovered manifestation in 2007 when The Secret came out. And since then, he's been on a lifelong journey to try and understand these principles. He's the author of a book that I am currently fully obsessed with, Alchemy of Imagination, The Power of Your Mind to Transform Your Life, which he wrote while sitting at a local nature preserve. He's got a killer TikTok presence, and manifestation is the name of the game for Sami, and we talk about it every week on this podcast. Sami, welcome to Was It Chance?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
And we're your first podcast ever, right?
Yes, this is my first podcast.
Well, we're setting a low bar, so it's only uphill from here.
So when we came up with the idea for this podcast, it's because Alan and I are like, did we create our realities? Like that's what we do. Thoughts become things. Like we take intention. I always say that the kind of line that I say is manifestation isn't deciding you want something and it magically appears. It's declaring something and then shifting the way you show up in the world for it to show up. Now, that's not exactly along the lines of what your book talks about, Sami, but I feel like it is because I'm getting ahead of myself. But when you talk about manifestation of first class flight, you make a phone call, right? Like you change something. You don't just sit there and think they're going to do it for me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, I'm not going to criticize The Secret, which was like what introduced me, but there were people who have criticized The Secret, and they said that The Secret introduced a lot of people to this idea, and it introduced this idea to a lot of people, but they didn't focus as much on the action. They focused more on think it and it'll become reality. Now, I'm not criticizing them because I love The Secret. It's one of my favorite, like, quote unquote documentaries. But that is something I think that as this knowledge had kind of spread and as people have dived into it and have talked about it and have kind of worked that out in their own lives, a lot of people now and for a while have come to this understanding that it is about action. The law of attraction and manifesting your reality is not just about thinking and then expecting it to just happen in the next couple of days.
Well, so what's
Yeah.
the difference between manifesting? Well, okay. I guess maybe there isn't a difference. Is there a difference between manifesting actions and positive affirmations in this context? Because I guess for me, if I'm like, I'm gonna be successful today, is
Mhm.
that's too generic
Yeah.
to be a specific manifestation?
Well, the answer I would give is maybe, maybe not. So, and I talk about this a lot in my book. I have, in several different chapters, I talk about this. So, on one hand, there's the difference between what in my book I distinguish between work and effort. I define work as something very positive and effort as something very negative. And then, as far as, that second part of your question with the affirmations, the daily affirmations, the reason I said maybe, maybe not is, at least in my experience, and I've done this in the past when I was younger, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll say, okay, from now on, every single day for the rest of my life, I'm going to say I'm successful. And it doesn't really work, or it didn't really do anything in my life because it's just words that becomes almost like, you know how you drive to work, you don't even think about turning left here, turn right, you just do it. It almost becomes like that where it doesn't have any meaning behind it. So I do think that affirmations work for a lot of people, and I do affirmations myself, but it's more about developing an attitude as opposed to repeating a mantra in your brain, because manifestation is more of an energy thing, not necessarily a neurological output, if that makes sense.
I love
I get that. I get that. And it's actually interesting because I'll be driving to work and then realize I work from home and don't know why I ever got in my car. But no, the the energy thing. I feel like there's a lot that people can tap into, and I've always felt like people are sort of connected on a way that that they don't realize, and so that's part of why. Side note, I just love theater and the arts, and when you're able to go on an emotional journey with a room full of strangers, right? Like that's a connection in a way that you don't get, and I think coming out of the pandemic now, we're realizing that how much we need connection, et cetera, et cetera. That's a whole separate conversation. So I guess. For you though, what sort of led you down this path of exploring or leaning into this? Because it's something that everyone sort of, they'll play around with affirmations, or they'll play around with like, I want to do this, or I want to be rich, or I want to get this dream job, and then they just go and sit on their couch and eat Doritos.
Well,
Pointing at
and
myself.
before you answer that, I just want to say for those, I really recommend the book. What I love so much about it is you're like, well, I know it's going to work because it always works. And I'm like, man, nobody does that. So take the question now, but it's just
Right,
fascinating.
like
to
leaning
me.
into that. How do you know that works?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate that you like my book so much. That means the world to me and more. It's my baby. I have 4 books, but I have a favorite child, so it's my baby. But yeah, here's the thing. So I have every single what are there, like almost 7 billion humans? That means there's 7 billion plus personality types. Every single person has a unique personality type. And I guess there are general categories, but everyone is at the end of the day a unique person. And in my case, when I was young, I always believed, even as a preteen, like as an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, I believed in, heaven and that there's a higher power and all of that. So I do come from a place where I just naturally, even from that youngest age, believed in kind of more than just the material world. But it does take a lot of development, because I think life has a habit of knocking us down repeatedly. As any chance life gets, it'll try and knock us down. So people oftentimes, I think, we get jaded as adults, and it's hard to maintain that attitude of, I know it will happen. But just like it's hard to lift weights in the gym, you got to start with the 5 pound, then move to the 10, then move to the 15, and then you have to keep doing it. And if you stop doing it, then you lose all of that strength. And I think the same, and I guess that's a cliche, but I do think it's true at the end of the day, where you do have to kind of maintain, you know what, let me take a step back. My middle school principal used to say something that I'll never forget. And this is one of my mantras. He said every single morning during the morning announcements, he would do all the morning announcements, what's for lunch, schedule changes, all of that. And then he would always end the PSA by saying, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. And as a middle schooler, you just hear that and you think, yeah, whatever. But as an adult, it really is true. You make it a great day or not, the choice really is yours. You can't expect life to make your day great for you. And I think that attitude takes consistency and practice. And in the same way, having an attitude of knowing that life will work out. And knowing that when life sometimes doesn't work out, it's not the end of the story, that takes practice and consistency.
That's huge because people will get rejection or something doesn't work and then they just sit on their couch and eat Doritos.
Yeah.
So you're not going to keep going. You're not going to do it and be successful if you stop and don't keep going. So what's the equivalent to the 5 pound weight in this? If we're using the gym metaphor,
Yeah.
Well,
what's the 5 pound?
And I actually think, can you share, Sami, what the steps are to manifestation, what you've laid out as the steps are, which are the ones that I mean, spiritually, universally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I begin the book, the first chapter is called Imagination. And it basically just kind of gives an overview of this idea that your imagination really does construct your reality. At the end of the day, it sometimes it's obvious in terms of synchronicities, which we can get to, and then sometimes it's not so obvious, but I lay out that kind of overview or that worldview. Then I go into the specific steps. Each chapter is one step. And the first step of manifestation is visualization. And it's the one that The Secret introduced to the world and introduced to me. And it seems straightforward, but there's kind of details. So the visualization is just thinking about what you want while also feeling good about it. So, if you want a promotion at work and you think about that promotion at work, but then you're feeling anxiety because you feel like you're about to get fired every day, then you're not going to manifest that promotion. So it's visualizing what you want in a specific way, and I'll get into those details in a moment, while also feeling good about it. Then the next steps are belief and release, which are intertwined, but they have some distinctions between the two. Belief is, like we were just talking about, believing that it's going to happen and really believing, not saying, okay, universe, it'll happen, I get it, but then you're worried all day. That's not believing it'll happen. You have to just walk with faith. Faith is another word for belief. It's the same thing. And then release, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult step, but it's also the most important of manifestation, and that is release. And the reason why they're intertwined is release is just releasing all attachment, but not releasing the desire. You can still want to manifest that thing or those things that you want, but releasing means that you are not having anxiety about it. You're not feeling that frustration. You're not feeling that tightness. And every time you think about it, your mind immediately goes to, oh, I'm going to feel so bad when I don't get it, or when I don't get that promotion, or when I get fired, or whatever it is. And then those are the specific steps. So once you've done those three, you've manifested, and it's just a matter of time until you get what you want. And it could be 1 second, or it could be a year. It really just depends, and I go over that in my book. And then there's general steps, which is vibration, which is having an overall mood of gratitude and understanding that we're all human beings and we're going to have bad days, and we're going to have days where we're feeling really low, we're feeling down. Sometimes that's triggered by an event. Sometimes we just woke up feeling that way. That's okay. You're not going to ruin your manifestations. But if that becomes too many days in a row, then that becomes a lower vibration. So you got to maintain that high vibration in order to keep what you've manifested, because how many stories have we heard about people winning the lottery and then 2 years later they're homeless? It's because they kept their original vibration. They got a stroke of luck, or however it happened. Then they didn't change who they are on the inside. And so it's only a matter of time before they kind of just slip back into their old patterns of behavior. So those are really the steps of manifestation. And then there's also how it intertwines with free will. I get into that. People have a lot of opinions about free will. It's a triggering subject, but those are kind of just a very broad overview without any details.
Well, we are living in a simulation, though.
Okay, so we've got to talk about that. I was waiting a little bit later because I wanted to ask some questions about the 3 steps, but okay, fine, Alan. I have not recovered from seeing your TikTok video that told me that the Nobel Prize for Physics went to scientists who have discovered that the universe does not locally exist. What the fuck does that mean?
I love this idea, and it's frightening all at the same time.
I have said that like really deadpan to probably 10 people, and they're like, what?
Yeah, the Earth is
how
flat
is
too,
that?
Heather. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, some people say, well, we're living in the Matrix, i.e. the movie from, I think it's 1999, The Matrix. Okay, yeah. I personally don't like to subscribe to that belief because it's just too depressing.
The red pill and the blue pill.
Yeah, exactly. The red pill, blue pill. I have kind of told myself, okay, I'm going to choose not to believe in that because it's just too depressing. I don't want to live in an artificial intelligence computer program. But if you want to look at more from a more esoteric or spiritual perspective, or even from a more divine perspective, they look at Hinduism. They talk about this world being, Maya, being the illusion, the great illusion, that there is a kind of a reality that is more real, the divine reality. What we're in right now is more of an illusory reality. So there are ancient religions that use different language to say the same thing, that this world is quote unquote a matrix. Everyone has their own different beliefs, and all of them are perfectly valid, in my opinion. I think that this world is real in the sense that we're experiencing it. What we do matters. What we do counts. We have to do good. We can't do evil. We shouldn't hurt other people just because, well, you're not, how do I know you're not real? And, stuff like that. But I think that this world being an illusion or being a matrix really does reinforce the idea that you can actually work with it and program it in a certain way according to your imagination, your vibration, and your beliefs. But there is a time delay.
So are we all controlling our, is it me speaking right now? Are you in my reality? Is Heather in my reality? Am I, is the simulation happening to me as an individual out of 8 billion people? We did cross the 8 billion population threshold now. Mm-hmm. Or are each of us experiencing our own simulation that happen to be playing in the same environment?
Well, okay, for those in the audience, I might get this term wrong, so forgive me, but isn't that called solipsism? Isn't that I might have gotten the word wrong, but there's a philosophy which basically,
Alan,
and I think
we'll
Steve
Google
Jobs,
that for you.
Yeah, solipsism, I think it's that one. And I think Steve Jobs had this understanding, like he thought he was the only real person. Again, fact check that because I'm not 100% sure. That might have been a rumor.
The quality of being very self-centered or selfish is solipsism.
Okay, so maybe that's where the word
Or it's a
arrives.
philosophy, that the viewer theory that the self is all that can be known to exist.
Well, there you go. So that's the theory. So there's a YouTube video called, I think it's called The Egg. And it's an animated short. It's like 10 minutes on, it's an animation, it's a cartoon. So the character, he passes away, I think in a car accident. And then he meets this great being who he thinks is God. And then anyway, over the course of the 10 minutes, you find out that actually he's going to be reincarnated. He tells him as a lady in China in the 7th century. And he's like, what? But it's the 21st century. How am I going back? And then this being tells him, you're going to reincarnate as every human being to have ever lived. And once you do that, you're going to basically, you're in an egg and you're going to crack open and become like what I am. You're still in the egg phase. So who knows? Maybe that's what's going on, where I was already you, or maybe I'm going to be you, who knows? We're
going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. Are you listening to this podcast on your commute to work, on a walk to the store? Do you ever think about the strangers around you and how your life could change by saying hello? That's the premise of Lincoln Center Theater's new play, The Coast Starlight. Set aboard a long-distance train, the play examines the power of human connection and the ways in which we guess at each other's lives. As a special offer to our listeners, all tickets for the month of February are just $35. To purchase tickets for The Coast Starlight, visit telechargeoffers.com and use code COAST35. Previews begin February 16th. For more information, visit lct.org.
23-year-old Walt Mendez finally got his dream job, working in show business. The only problem is his new boss, a low-level talent agent with rageaholic tendencies.
You're a nice person, Walt. That's going to be a problem. So listen, whatever your impulse is, do the opposite.
When she has a heart attack on his first day, leaving him alone, clueless and in charge, he discovers some questionable financial dealings, led by her dentist husband.
I'm literally doing root canals on anything with insurance.
And he turns to his ruthless predecessor for advice.
Walt, grow a pair. You're in the Hunger Games.
Soon, his shady ex-boyfriend resurfaces, coming on strong and making the job suddenly more attractive.
Am I making you nervous?
A little.
And it's turning you on, isn't it?
All heard through his headset at the office, Rolling Calls is a hilarious dark comedy starring Julie Halston, Richard Kind, Dan Rosales, Matt Doyle, Wesley Taylor, Luis Miranda, Aaron Davey, Brittany Mack, Andrea Macassette, and more. Get ready for Rolling Calls at bpn.fm/Rolling Calls or everywhere you listen to podcasts.
And now we're back.
Are you able to say exactly what scientists did prove? The Nobel Prize-winning scientists?
Yeah, I mean, from the research I did back when I did that TikTok video last year, I think that they kind of just they had discovered that the universe is like, I don't know if string theory is the correct way to put it, but from what I recall, it was a long time ago, but they had basically come to the conclusion that the universe is not, if you can hear that, it's not three-dimensional, real, and then this is all there is, that it's connected to some other greater reality, which is like what the Buddhists talk about, what the Hindus talk about. So that was my understanding of what the Nobel physicists had discovered, that it's not locally here in the sense that it's not this physical construct and then there's nothing outside of it. And that it does emanate from our sort of collective and individual consciousness.
I've been diving into this, and this is, I mean,
I wish everybody could see your face, Alan.
There's so many different things that I've been trying to use to understand the fourth dimension, and to a two-dimensional being, they don't understand three dimensions. Mm-hmm. We are three-dimensional beings, so we can't understand fourth dimension. And there's, I mean, our reality of how we perceive the universe and how we perceive matter and whatnot, like you were saying, it's all part of a simulation that is local to us, but that's our perception of the universe, and we may be three-dimensional beings inside a four or five-dimensional universe where time is happening all at once. But because we are only three-dimensional beings, we have to experience it linearly. So I love that idea of the Matrix and Neo being able to just control everything around you, right? Like, everybody who doesn't want to control their entire environment,
right?
Which I guess brings this back to you and the book and your philosophy in general, right? So you are going through life trying to influence, or trying or successfully, right? Like, I guess successfully influencing your environment and your future, and I guess speak to that a little bit, because in your day to day, and we can play some improv games later. I can give you a nasty situation, and you'll tell me how you could handle it. You get coffee spilled on you by the barista who's had a bad day, but you don't know it. How do you handle that?
You say, no, I love coffee on my t-shirt. Thank you.
Wait,
would you really do that?
Well, you know what, actually, so when I was living in Boston, my friends and I were at a sushi restaurant, and the waitress, she accidentally spilled the soy sauce on my pants. And thankfully I was wearing black khakis, so it's like, who cares? Because they're not going to stain. But she was so apologetic, and she felt so horrible. And she was like, you could tell how much anxiety she had. And I'm like, no, I love soy sauce on my pants. Don't worry.
It just broke the ice.
Yeah, I mean, because look, at the end of the day, you know what? At the end of the day, what's more important? What's more important, a pair of pants or somebody's mood for the next 6 hours? Someone's mood is more important, because that is actually being experienced. Your pair of pants, they're going to get old. You wash them 10 times and they're wrinkled and dull. The color's faded. So who cares about material things?
Well, so that, I think, that's a great question, is how important, because so much of this that we've been talking about and the work that you have out there is internal self-work. Mm-hmm. How important is it from a community standpoint? Is it from a kindness, giving each other grace and supporting each other on the path standpoint?
Yeah, I'm all about
and
that.
And how do they gel?
I'm all about that. So there's a story in Hinduism where someone goes to heaven, and then he asks, I guess God, or he asks, how come Earth can't be like this? And then the person responds, it's not, or he asks, why didn't you make Earth so beautiful like this? And he's like, it's not that I didn't make Earth so beautiful. It's that the consciousness of the people in heaven is what's creating this beauty. And it's the consciousness of the people on Earth that's creating all of the turmoil. So you, at the end of the day, can only control yourself. You have no control over other people. But collectively, I think we do, either on a subtle level or maybe on an obvious level, influence the kind of overall experience that we're all experiencing on this earth.
I'm letting that sit for a second.
I agree. And I wanted to ask you how someone who is maybe super religious, probably particularly not if it's not a Eastern religion, is there room for them to fully believe both of these things? Let's just say Christianity?
Yeah, I think, and we can say for all Western or Abrahamic religions or Christianity in specific, I think that you can, and I don't think we need to necessarily know exactly how or why, but I listened to a YouTube video of someone a long time ago who was asked the question about free will versus destiny, and how do you mesh the two, because seemingly they're mutually exclusive. And then he actually responded really interesting. He said, does Newtonian physics contradict quantum physics? And the answer is no, but they operate on parallel levels. So Newtonian physics is cause and effect. If an object is here, it cannot be over here. Every cause has an effect, equal reaction. Quantum physics, Newtonian physics break down at that level, but they both exist and operate simultaneously on different levels. So I think in that sense, free will, and then in other words, manifestation, and then destiny or fate are all operating simultaneously on a level that we just aren't privy to, and we're not meant to be privy to. And that's the best answer I can give.
It's the fourth dimension.
It's the fourth dimension.
Hey.
Or maybe it's the fifth and sixth and seventh. It's one of them, or all of them.
I love that. I want to go back to something Heather said in your intro. What's fintech?
Financial technology.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like shark fins.
Yeah, it could be like a swim, like the swimming industry, like coming up with better fins and better.
I was like, wait, is he like working in submarine kind of stuff, or is it like airplane fins? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. But yeah, of course I know financial technology. Now that you've said it, of course it makes total sense, and I knew it all along. Right? That's my manifestation of.
Well, actually, yeah. So that could be a synchronicity, which we haven't talked about, but synchronicities are very interesting.
Ooh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, synchronicity. Okay, so when I was first introduced, I have a funny story. Well, let me first define what a synchronicity is. A synchronicity is when you think about something and then it just happens, usually very quickly, like same day or same week. You think about someone that you haven't seen in 20 years, and then that person follows you on Instagram or something like that. Or I talk about in my book, there used to be a gas station close to where I live when I was a kid, and it was Texaco, which doesn't really exist anymore. Or if it does, it's like there's only a handful of them. It used to be a very common gas station. And then, for the last 20 years, it's been something else. And then I was just randomly, sometimes memories just float to the surface. I just randomly had this memory of being with my dad filling up gas at that gas station and thinking, oh, Texaco with the big T, and it was red with a red star. And then the next day, or that same day, I can't remember, it's in my book, that week, like I'm scrolling on a website, and then the ad is historical photos of Northern Virginia, and it's that freaking gas station that was a Texaco sign. So that's a synchronicity where you think about something and it just happens. And the very first day that I discovered the secret, I had a synchronicity before I knew what synchronicities were. So I was in high school, and it was like a week or two before summer break. And you know how it is. The teachers aren't even interested in teaching you anymore. When you've got 10 days left of school, everyone's on summer break mentally. So there was this class where we were watching a movie instead of doing schoolwork. And the teacher decided to put on a funny movie called Top Secret, and which, if you remember, it's an old 1970s, 1980s comedy. So we watched this movie called Top Secret, and then I went home that afternoon, and my mom was like, Sammy, come here. You have to watch this movie. It's called Top Secret. And I was like, what? I just watched that movie today. She's like, what do you mean? No, you didn't. Why would you watch this movie today? I'm like, we watched it in school. And she's like, your teacher wouldn't play this kind of a movie in class. And I was like, no, it's a really funny movie. She's like, no, what do you mean funny? What are you talking about? My mom ended up getting the movie wrong. It was called The Secret, but she thought it was called Top Secret. So she's like, watch this movie called Top Secret. And she gave me the DVD back in the days of DVDs. Now you know how old I am. And
I remember beta
VHS.
tapes,
yeah, well,
so.
exactly. I remember,
Betamax,
I remember
the
those.
top load.
I remember. Yeah, I remember those things too. So no, I remember VHS. But anyway, we were a VHS family. But anyway, so that's a synchronicity where I randomly watched this movie in school. And then that day, my mom says, you have to watch this movie called Top Secret. But she got the movie wrong. It was The Secret.
But still.
And they happen all the time. And people always ask why. They're really, really important because they're kind of like when you have work evaluations and you get like a 5 out of 5. That's what a synchronicity is. It's the universe telling you you're on the right path. You're manifesting. You're doing it. You have this power. Keep doing it.
I love that.
That's actually really that's very cool. I think there's an element of that is recency bias, Or maybe recency bias is part of synchronicity and they're one and the same, right? Like you buy a Subaru and then you notice every Subaru on the road. Well, maybe that's all part of the same thing. Because when you're manifesting and when you're doing positive affirmation and when you're paying attention to something that you want to that you want to have happen, or well, actually, let's rephrase it, that you know is going to happen, right? So you're
Desire.
you're tuning
I use the word desire instead of
desire
want.
to happen. So you're tuning your brain to look for the threads. I feel like, in the multiverse, right? There's infinite choices that could happen in any given day. And so there's all these threads that you could pull on to start unraveling your destiny. And then so by doing all of this and training yourself and by going from the 5 to the 10 to the 15-pound weights, you're getting better and better and better at identifying those opportunities that are going to get you where you want to go and be successful. Yes?
Yes. Now, I will say, I think all these science folk like to keep us spiritual folk down with their fancy terms like recency bias. No, I'm just joking. But I think, all their technical speak. No, I'm kidding. I think recency bias. Look, I mean, that could be a real thing. Probably is a real thing where you buy Subaru and then you see Subarus everywhere. But I think over a lifetime of paying attention to synchronicities, you'll notice that it goes more than just recency bias, because a synchronicity can happen just one time. It's not like you're noticing all of a sudden red cars everywhere. It's like that example with the Texaco gas station. I literally thought of a gas station by my house in the 1990s, and then I see an old photo. It was actually a black and white photo because it was from the 50s, but it was a historical photo of that exact gas station. That's not a recency bias. That's a synchronicity. You can't. And then when they happen once or twice, you think, well, coincidences happen. But over the course of decades of being alive, you start to notice that there's something strange going on. And the ancient Greeks talk about it. It's not like this is just a 2000s fad idea. This is something that people have been talking about for millennia.
Yeah.
What's the level of focus? And right, so how often should you try to make should you focus on desiring something to happen? What's the word I'm looking for?
Visualization. Yeah, I'd love for you to break that down. And there are a couple things. I've been actively doing visualization for several years, and I learned some things from you that I hadn't heard from anyone else. And the first one, and this one has been really hard for me, is first person perspective. So I'd love for you to break down visualization and talk about that. Like I find myself really how like you see a little kid really focusing. I'm like, my eyes are squinted and I'm like, this is so hard.
It's unnatural. So let me answer, because Alan's question I think can be answered more quickly, and then I'll answer your question. So to answer your question, Alan, how often should you be visualizing? The answer is it's different for everyone, but generally I would say, again, I don't like placing an exact number. So I'll say a short period of time. We can call that a week. We can call that a few days. I would say visualize, and if you do it right, if you really do it right, you only need to do it, some will say one time. I like to say a few times to kind of insurance, but do it every single day for a week or a couple of weeks or a few days, and then you have to let it go. Because at some point, if you continue to visualize, it's going to turn into anxiety. If you keep focusing and trying to make something happen with your thoughts or with your actions, it's going to become anxiety, and that's not release or belief. That's the opposite. So that's why I always like to tell people, whatever's right for you. For some, it might be once. For some, it might be a month. For some, it might be a week. But you got to, at some point, let it go. And that doesn't mean never think about it, but it means stop trying to visualize and trying to, make it happen. And then to answer...
I call that surrender.
It's surrender.
Like
release
in my
is
work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like you have to surrender the how and just trust that result is going to show up for you. Surrender is my word of the year. Well,
you do have to surrender. And actually, before I get to your to answer your question, let me bring a story. This is an old Chinese proverb, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly, but the proverb goes that there's an old man. How does it go? There's an old man whose horse ran away, and all of his neighbors said, "You're so unlucky," and he said, "Maybe." The next day, his horse returns with several other horses that it found in the wild. And all of his neighbors said, "You're so lucky because now you have 5 horses." And he says, "Maybe." The following day, his son is riding one of these wild horses, falls off and the son breaks his leg. They say, "You're so unlucky. Your son broke his leg." He says, "Maybe." The following day, the king or the emperor sends his army to recruit all the young men in all the villages to go fight in a war, but they don't take his son because he has a broken leg. And they say, "You're so lucky." And he says, "Maybe." So you kind of get the idea. You don't always know when you're manifesting, it's not always going to come in a linear fashion. I wanted a red car, so therefore, if I manifest correctly, my job is going to give me a promotion and a raise, enough to comfortably buy a new car. It's not always going to happen in this linear, three-dimensional, I can predict it kind of way. And when you visualize in third person, which is the correct way to visualize it, and this really comes from a man named Neville Goddard from last century, and he really coined this idea of manifesting in first person. And it is brilliant because it's really difficult to do it first because it's unnatural. Because when you think naturally, you kind of see yourself, like if you want to manifest a car, most people will visualize themselves and they'll picture a scene where they're over there in the distance opening their new car and they kind of see this whole picture. That's the incorrect way of manifesting. The correct way of manifesting is to see yourself in first person, which is, I know the audience is only audio here, so because I'm kind of doing this on the screen, but look at yourself through your eyes. So when you're manifesting, when you're imagining in your mind and your eyes are closed and you're picturing a scene, you have to picture a scene as if you're looking out from your eyes. So when you look down, you see your arms, you see your legs. You don't see yourself at a distance. So if you want to manifest a car, and this is the example I use in my book because it's an easy and common example, like picture yourself holding the steering wheel of your new car, seeing your hand grab the steering wheel in front of you. Don't picture yourself looking at yourself at a distance inside of a car because you might manifest looking at other people driving cars.
Do you dream in first person or third person? I was trying to think as you were telling that. I don't remember a single third person dream I've had.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
I think I dream in first person.
Because we are in our dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why would you manifest? Like when I think of myself, I don't picture me. I'm always thinking of in first person.
Well, of course, it just comes naturally to you, Alan.
Solipsism.
Yeah, it's a difficult word. It's one of those fancy talk, fancy science talk.
Slim fancy science words like recency bias. All right, one more quick break. Hang on a second.
Hello, attractive and discerning podcast listener. Have you lost weight? I'm Tom Allen Robbins, creator and writer of Twits in Love, a steampunk distraction. It's a radio comedy here on the Broadway Podcast Network.
And I'm Michael Urie, also known as Cyril Chippington Smythe, your favorite boob and the star of Twits.
We're here to tell you that in addition to being a podcast, Twits in Love is now available as a real live hold-in-your-hands book on Amazon.
Or e-reader.
Yes, you can get it on a Kindle.
Kindle.
But you can also listen to it here on the Broadway Podcast Network, performed by an unbelievable cast.
Aw, shucks. Join me and a slew of amazing actors like Christian Borle, Mary Testa, Dakin Matthews, Kira Allen, James Monroe Iglehart, Lilias White, and Anne Harada in a story about the world's richest man, Cyril Chippington Smythe, his steam-powered valet Bentley, and his chinless cousin Binky, as they navigate a dystopian world in search of love and meaning.
Listen to Twits in Love, available now everywhere you find podcasts, and make sure to learn more about getting the book by visiting bpn.fm/twits.
Wait, where do I go?
bpn.fm/twits, you boob. Yes. Or you can go to twitschronicles.com.
Gotcha.
All right, here's the rest of the episode.
The other thing that I thought was really notable from your work, Sami, is that you recommend that they be short visualizations. Can you explain
It's not
why?
the size that matters, Heather. It's the quality of your visualization.
You know what? Right before we started this interview, everybody, we talked about the fact that Alan is a 12-year-old boy in a 42-year-old man's body, and Sami said they all are.
Yes,
So
I let Heather in our secret. Sorry, guys. We're all 12-year-old boys in adult bodies. Again, this is something that it can come down to preference, and everybody has their own kind of energetic DNA or energetic composition. For me, and in my opinion, and many people I've spoken to, it works better to do short and concise visualizations because it's easier to just, if you want to use the metaphor, planting the seed. It's easier to plant that seed and then release it. Because when you start, and it doesn't mean you can't have these long storylines, you can. But in my opinion and experience, if you keep it short, concise, and simple, it's easier to make it happen because you've planted the seed, and it takes pre-planning, by the way. You have to kind of go into a visualization with a little bit of a plan. Think about what you want, why you want it, how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. Come up with a short scene, a couple minutes long. Doesn't need to be a grand story with all the drama. And then let it go. And then do that exact same scene or a variation or a completely different scene, but do scenes that are short and concise every night before you go to bed, every morning when you wake up, and then let it go throughout the day so you can be busy with your daily things.
Is this akin, like a second or third cousin to meditation?
Absolutely. It's yeah, like, I think you put it so well, second or third cousin, because meditation, I think, ideally is to release all thoughts, whereas visualization is like developing a thought. But it's the same thing. Where meditation, you're releasing and you're going inward. Same thing with visualization. You're going inward and then releasing.
So in the South, you can still marry each other, second or third cousins. So that's fine.
Okay.
What?
Now we've offended an entire region of Americans.
And the first cousins are like, what about us?
Sami, you said in the morning and in the evening, and I would love for you to differentiate what types of things you will be manifesting in a morning visualization versus an evening visualization, and also why. Can you share that?
Absolutely. So evenings are better for visualization. Mornings are better for vibration. So make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. He said that in the morning, not at the afternoon announcements, because in the morning is when you're getting ready for the day. You want to set the tone. In the evening, that's when things are quiet. You can turn the lights off. You can there's no sound. There's no horn honking outside if you live in a city. Things are quiet. Things are more calm and serene. You can focus more inwardly. In the morning, it's better to set the tone for your day. And when you set the tone for a day, that becomes a mood. When you set the tone for many days in a row, that becomes a lifestyle, for better or for worse. So that's why I say we're all human. We're going to have bad days, but keep it to 3 days or less, because more than 3 days, you run the risk of that becoming an energetic pattern. But vibration in the morning and visualization in the evening.
Sami has soy sauce pants again. It's a good day for him.
And don't get bogged down by the little things. If the waitress spills soy sauce on your pants, let it go. It's okay. You can get new pants.
I mean, that would be a case for why you don't want to roll over and immediately get on your phone.
Right, exactly. And I'm guilty of this, though. But I'm gonna. But
so many people are. I actually did it this morning,
That's
but I don't.
Ariana Huffington. That was when I met her. That was one of her takeaways. Was like, someone asked her like, "How do you become successful?" And she's like, "A, sleep more. If you work around the clock, you're counterproductive. It actually hurts. And then 2, like, wake up in the morning and don't look at your phone, because it's gonna set the mood." So taking it back here, it's going to set this vibration in a way where you're automatically looking at things that are just like shitty for the day. You read the news, or someone's like, I don't know, on social media.
Need something from you. Yeah. It also reminds me, since we're talking about people that Alan's interviewed in the past, I have not interviewed Ariana Huffington or Matthew McConaughey, but in his book, Green Lights, he talks about what you said earlier on. I have to channel my inner Matthew McConaughey, which was a problem after I listened to his audiobook, because I just did it for weeks until my partner said, when are you going to stop being Matthew McConaughey? Never. Anyway, he said sometimes you think it's a red light. You think this is bad. This is stop. This was not good. This did not work out well. And then later you look back and you go, oh, green light. Like, that was not a stop. That was not a mistake or a problem. It led me down this path, and I love that.
I should listen to that book again.
You really should. Everybody should. I loved that fucking book so much. He's like got the golden touch though, so I don't know. Maybe he's just manifested it.
I think it was Cormac McCarthy who wrote. It's a famous author who said, you never know what worse luck your bad luck saved you from.
Yes.
That's
I mean, that I hear that a lot in the interviews with my theater people, right? Like in my other podcast, it's just the job you didn't get the jobs, plural, you didn't get led you to the ones you got. And that's what's amazing. So you wouldn't have had this great time if you didn't lose the other ones ahead of it.
And that's true in my story. I'm working at an
ask.
incredibly awesome company now. And, you know, I wouldn't have been here if I had another job.
Making shark fins, right.
Making shark fins, yeah. And artificial intelligence.
So that's a question that we ask almost every interview. And I'll ask you, Sami, and maybe how you will approach this answer will be a little different. I'm curious. What does failure mean to you, especially in the context of what we're talking about?
So I think there's more to the world than manifesting all the things we want. I think it's a learning journey first and foremost. So I think failure is an important, though painful, necessary step to becoming a more mature soul. You know, children become adults and then souls become mature souls. So I think failure is, it's like what we were talking about earlier. Does Newtonian and quantum physics contradict each other? No. Does free will and fate contradict each other? No. Failure doesn't mean that manifestation is BS. It just means that it's knit into the fabric of your story, that you have to go through certain experiences to become a more mature, wise, less spoiled soul.
So where has something appeared as a failure or a red light for you that you can very clearly see, oh, that the universe had my back in that scenario?
Green light.
You know, my failure is that,
Green light.
yeah, my failure, I think, is that I work too hard and I'm too loving and those are my failures and my weaknesses. No.
Oh, stop.
I'm
Stop
way too
it.
handsome, way too caring.
I'm way too
Way
nice. People like me way too much.
Exactly. So in a job interview, what's your biggest weakness? That I work too hard. No, you know what? Let me tell you something. My books, this one specifically, but all 4 of my books would not have been written if I did not go through a period where I was struggling to find work a few years ago in 2019 and part of 2018. I couldn't find work. I was doing a lot of independent work at that time, freelance. So, but then I went through a dry period. I couldn't find anything and I was applying for jobs. I wasn't hearing back. I was applying to get projects, wasn't hearing back. And then I went on a trip to LA and I got the inspiration. I've always wanted to write a book and never really wrote a book about something. I didn't really know like what to write a book about. And I always thought I would write a novel, but I was like waiting for the inspiration, you know, like how some people, they just like Cormac McCarthy, by the way, he said the story of The Road, which is a very depressing book, trigger warning. He said he was like downloaded with that story. So all my life I've been waiting for that. And then it never happened. But I was in LA and I got the inspiration to write this book because it just hit me, you know, I can manifest. And sometimes we all can manifest. And sometimes you go through periods in life where things don't work to get you to do something different. And also sometimes you go through periods of life where you're not getting what you want because sometimes we forget that we can manifest and we go through these periods. Just like you have a bad day, you can have a bad chapter in your life. And that's okay because that's part of being a human being. And that was a difficult chapter in my life, but it led to the writing of my first book, which then gave me the motivation to write 3 more. But this book wouldn't have happened if I didn't go through an extended period of rejection, which is not only difficult financially, but it was difficult emotionally. It was difficult spiritually. It was difficult because am I not good enough? I started to get anxiety before interviews because clearly I'm doing something wrong. Clearly there's something wrong with me. I'm hearing all these no's. But then all those no's led to this book, which led to me getting a job as a copywriter, which is, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better job as far as I'm concerned. All day I'm writing, which is all I want to do. I'm getting paid to write. It's like, can you believe it? Imagine getting paid to eat food all day. It's like, could you imagine a better job? So that wouldn't have happened if I didn't write a book on manifestation, which wouldn't have happened if I didn't fail for a period of time.
What is something that came out of the book process, the writing process that you never expected, that was a surprise? Like something positive.
Well, it was a surprise how quickly I wrote the book. It was downloaded to me. I can't explain it. Although it did come after many, you know, like more than a decade of learning and researching this stuff. But what came out of the book, I guess, was how easy it was for me to write a book. I never knew it would be that easy. It just flowed out of me. And again, the information had been in my head all this time, but it just flowed from my brain through my hands onto the computer and then onto paper. And that was, I think, a big motivation, A, to write more books, and B, to transition my career away from Excel spreadsheets, which I don't like very much. And now I'm in a writing-based career, which I love. So it really kind of helped to transition my life. And, I wrote this book as a form of self-therapy because I knew all of this stuff in my head. But like I mentioned, I was in an extended period of difficulty. But I always believed in these concepts. So I wrote this book as a form of A, self-therapy, B, as an affirmation, and C, as my own game plan of how I'm going to get myself out of this rut. And I did. I followed the advice of my book, and my life veered in a more positive direction.
You created the book, took it from first to third person, read it, manifested it back in first person, and the cycle continues.
Exactly.
Well,
and now I
what I
talk about
love
it
is
to other people in second person, although, is that second person? It is you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I love that. This sort of learning out loud, of doing our own thing out loud, so that if somebody else needs to be on that journey, they can go with you. I'd actually love to pull your human design chart. I'm really curious about. Are you familiar with human design?
I know what it is. I've tried to learn it. I found it difficult, but I would love to. I would love to learn more about it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, if you want to, we'll do it. There's an episode of my podcast, The Brave Files, coming out not next week, but the week after, with my human design coach and mentor. So for those listening, if you want to know a little bit more, check out The Brave Files. But Sami, if you want to connect with me one-on-one,
yeah, let's do it.
We can chat about that.
Yeah, I know I'm a generator, and then my profile is investigating martyr. So I don't know what that means.
1-3.
Yeah,
You're a 1-3.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew you were a 1-3.
Yeah, oh,
Me
right,
too.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, because we are compelled to dig deep, to learn as much as we can, and then we just cannot help but tell other people about what we're experiencing and learning as we're doing it.
Do you remember? It's a meme, but do you remember that movie Scott Pilgrim and something? That movie.
Pilgrim Saves the World. Yeah, Michael Cera.
Saves the World. Yeah. There's this one scene where one of his ex-girlfriend, who's a vegan, she's like, being vegan just makes you better than most people. And it's a meme, so I should change it to being a 1-3 just makes you better than most people.
There's nothing bad in human design. It's all great. But I love
yes.
being a 1-3. And actually, I don't know if I just got called out on this last weekend. My one line, which just has to know things, something will come up and I will immediately Google it. You're the same, Alan. Like, oh, I have to know more about that. And my partner will go, well, you don't have to look it up right now. It's like midnight and we're in bed. I'm like, nope, I do. I need to know right now. I need to know right now. So yeah.
I trust the AI gods
So-
to serve this information to me. So I'll start searching for it, and then it starts coming to me as ads. Or maybe it's
Of course it will.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
synchronicity though. But
Ooh.
I will start. I'll do a little bit of research, and then I just wait a couple days because the information starts flowing into me. I know that big data, synchronicity, big data has got me targeted.
It's creepy, but also maybe it is synchronicity. Maybe what's it? Okay, let's talk about that, Sami.
Yep.
You're an AI. Like, that's also creepy. So where is it? Is it AI? Is it Big Brother? Is it synchronicity? What the fuck is it?
One or both. I don't know. It's A, B, or C, all of the above.
Fair. That's probably the best answer that anyone can give at this point.
Yeah. Oh my
Do you know?
gosh.
Do you know? Have
That's
you heard of
so
Mo
cool.
Gadot? Do you know who he is?
Mm-mm.
He's a former founder of Google X, and was a big proponent of AI development and stuff. And he's another person I've interviewed. And he talks about the singularity. He's got a book called Scary Smart that came out, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago now, called Scary Smart. And it's the 2040 is the singularity when AI is going to surpass the all known predictions.
That scares me.
It's gonna surpass
I
the
don't like
predictions that we are able to look ahead and see at this point, because even right now, and maybe you may be one of these people too, the developers who develop the algorithms to target, like the retargeting for all of these social media ads and all of the things that AI is being used for, we'll put in air quotes constructively right now. You ask the developer how the system made the choice to serve all these people with these ads, and they don't know anymore, because AI in the span of a second, like learning is destroying what doesn't work, right? And going with what does. And so an AI can literally make copies of itself and do that in seconds. And so it
Mm-hmm.
is trying and failing thousands or hundreds of thousands of times in a matter of seconds, whereas as humans, we cannot do that. So the growth rate of AI is mind-boggling.
And Sami writes the copy for shit like that.
Yes,
so.
I do. Well, we do. So it's AI in finance. So it's a program that trades on the stock market and Forex and gold market on your behalf. So it's super intelligent. So we do that. So it's not so much, it's more of a money-based AI as opposed to take over the world AI.
Now that I can get behind,
yes.
because I definitely need some computer to tell me what to do with investing.
Yes.
There's so much ethics there. Oh my gosh, because how do you program ethics into this algorithm? So it's like, all of a sudden, why can't I just take all the money? I'm going to funnel it into my offshore account so that the 8 billion people don't have money. I have money and I've destroyed the economy. Up with AI. Yeah. Like, all of it. There's your next fiction book.
You know what? When I was in grad school, I had to take a marketing class. I got my MBA, so I had to take a marketing class. And the professor once gave us he was a PhD student, and he was showing us like something that he had been working on, which was basically, and this is not new, but it was basically using shapes and colors to be able to direct most people's eyes to a specific, like some people are just immune to this for some reason, but most people, their eye will be directed to a specific point on the screen where they would place the brand or something. And they know how to, the brain just somehow, because of shapes and colors, the eyes will go over here. And I asked him, is that ethical? And he's like, I don't know.
the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah. We're living in very, very interesting times, which is both good and bad, but very interesting times. But the AI has one big weakness that we're all failing to mention. You can turn it off. You can unplug it.
That's
true.
You can't unplug
what was that
people.
movie?
The Matrix.
What was the movie back in the 80s where it wasn't The Matrix.
Terminator?
It was before The Matrix, where you'd unplug the computer and it still talked. Damn
I can't remember.
Come on,
E.T.?
Start your Google search.
Okay, if anyone in the audience randomly...
War Games. Was it War Games?
I'm not sure.
I've never seen War Games.
I don't know.
But War Games is probably going to show up on someone's TV in the audience in the next week. As a synchronicity.
Right? Okay, if War Games shows up, you have to let us know. Sami, just to wrap all of this up, I think it's so cool. I would be curious, those who are listening who are like, I do not believe this.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them?
I would say several things. So you can believe water's not wet. You're still going to get wet if you jump in a pool. So I would say that from my personal worldview, this stuff is real. And how do I put it? I know what I want to say, but I'm struggling to find the words. It's not about I don't believe it or it's not real. You can, if you open your mind and open your awareness enough, you're going to notice synchronicities. Follow those synchronicities and see where it leads you. And if you found that it really doesn't apply and you still haven't found enough evidence that it's not working, then that is your path. And that's a perfectly valid path. And I think you can live a perfectly fulfilling and healthy and happy life, not ever manifesting or visualizing consciously and intentionally.
Yeah.
But I think that if you approach this from an open mind and you open your eyes to kind of all the synchronicities that'll happen, and you look back and just think about all the times that you've thought of something that'll happen, then, I guess that's my answer. Was that a good note? I feel like that was a jumbled answer.
No, I love that. I'm certified in positive psychology, and I've written 2 gratitude journals, and I'm a transformational success coach, and all of my clients, I take them through consistent gratitude. And almost all of them really don't want to. They don't believe me. They're like annoyed. They can only think big picture. And I'm like, let's get really granular. But I say every time, the thing is, you don't have to believe me. You just have to do it because the science is actually there. They've proven that they can do an MRI on your brain before you do daily gratitude. And then 3 months later, and it shows that you are happier, healthier, less stressed because your body is just going to respond to it. And inevitably they come back and go, wow, I always feel so much better. I'm like, oh, do you? Okay.
Well, I think also, I think also people sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, we're all guilty of this. I think people sometimes have an aversion to this idea because their mind always goes to, you're telling me I manifested that traumatic event when I was 10, or you're telling me
Yeah.
that I manifested losing all my money in the stock market or something. It's like it's not that you necessarily manifested that specific event. It's like we talked about earlier, there's fate and there's free will, and they both operate simultaneously. There are lessons to be learned independent of manifestation, but you can consciously choose to shorten the time period of a difficult chapter in your life, or a negative, consistently and intentionally negative attitude may lengthen that time period. May. I don't want to say will. But, manifestation plays an important part in the pie chart of your experience.
The pie chart of experience. That's the name of my memoir.
Go for it.
That's Sammy's next book.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, I wrote a gratitude journal as well. So that's also, you can get that. And as someone who also, like you were saying, you publish a gratitude journal, they are excellent, excellent tools, because when you write something down, journaling has been around for who knows how long, because it works. Things that have stuck around for a long time or forever, they stick around because they work. Journaling works. Writing things down works. It helps you to vent and release. So I think gratitude journals are great. I've used them. I love them.
They are. And I will say, I'm a big fan, and I do gratitude in a lot of different ways. I do visualization in different ways, different times. I even sometimes do it in the middle of the day. I don't know if we're supposed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You
according
can.
to
No,
Sammy,
go for it.
But I don't journal every day. I just don't. I'm not that type of routine person, but I do practice gratitude out loud every day. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not all or nothing. And would you say that about manifestation? If you don't do it every day, is it still like, are you screwed? Is it not going to work? Because
No.
I would think that it's going to work even if you do.
Absolutely. No, it'll absolutely work. And that's why vibration is so important. And I have a whole chapter on that in my book, because you're not going to manifest every day. We forget, we get busy, we get distracted. But vibration is more of a background theme. And that's why it's important. Again, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have bad moods. You're humans. It's okay. We're all human. But overall, the vibration is the background theme that sets the overall atmosphere of your experience. Manifestation is more of a deliberate, specific thing. You're manifesting a job or working at a company or a house on the beach, or even something that doesn't have to be material. You can manifest non-material things like having a loving family, like improving relations with your family. That goes hand in hand with vibration and manifestation, but you don't have to manifest every day.
I'm sorry, I have to ask one more question.
Yeah, go
Can you
for it.
give an example of how someone might visualize a healthier relationship with a parent or a child or a loved one?
Yeah.
'Cause I think that feels very different than a car.
Of course, yeah, exactly. And it's a lot more complicated than a car. A car is simple. Human beings are not simple. And energetic relationships are much more complicated. I think on one hand, the answer is it's going to depend on the history and the current situation of your relationship with this other person. But as a general answer, I would say always allow people, Maya Angelou said, love liberates. And I love that quote, because when you love someone, you set them free. You don't hold on to them. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be over there and you're never going to see them. It just means you energetically set them free. And I think when you do that, their energies will blossom in a way that becomes more compatible with your energy. So I think always fight hate with love, forgive, which is a very difficult practice, forgiveness. It's the most difficult of all the spiritual practices is forgiveness, because you're forgiving people who've hurt you. But
that's a chapter in my book, actually.
Yeah, it's a very important topic. Exactly. So, but that's what I would say is liberate from a loving perspective, set them free, detach from the angst that you hold in that relationship. And over time, those energetic bonds will connect again. Or they'll be separated if it's better for you, mutually better for the two people to separate. That can happen too. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, like, so if we are doing an active visualization exercise for that, do you imagine just sort of sending them love without expectation? Do you just imagine sort of, this is the way I think I would do it, is just sort of like a telegram from my heart to theirs, almost like a vibrating energy. Here's my love.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I don't need anything back. I'm just sending it out.
Okay, no, so that's important and you should do that, but that's not manifesting. Then I'll answer your question this way. Just like we talked about manifest in first person, super important. You also have to manifest what I call in the book the afterthought, which is manifesting from the end. So you never ever want to manifest experiencing the event or the situation. You want to visualize how you would feel and what you would be seeing after it had already happened. So if you want to manifest a better relationship with someone, whether that's a romantic or a non-romantic relationship, come up with scenes that would imply that you've already received what you want. So if you want to manifest, let's just say a romantic relationship where this person, you're now married to this person, even though right now you're not getting along or you're maybe not together, try manifesting. And the afterthought would be you already wearing the wedding ring, already living with this person, already kind of in the humdrum of daily life being with this person. Don't manifest a text message because that's an intermediary event getting you from A to B. That's a synchronicity. Don't manifest a first date. Oh, hey, it's good seeing you after all this time. Don't manifest that dinner. Manifest the afterthought, which would imply that you've already made up, you've already made amends, you're back together, romantic or not romantic.
When you were talking about the difference between like a car and a relationship, I was just picturing like bidding on 3 years of family therapy on The Price is Right.
Also, remember, this is America, so I bet you somewhere out there's a man who married his car.
Oh my gosh.
Legally.
Yes, that is true.
In a non-legal ceremony?
As long
actually,
as
so
it's not
funny
same
because
sex.
it's so funny because
if the car's their same
sex. If the car is
sex.
opposite sex, then it's still legal.
It's so funny
Stop
because
it.
there's a story in, again, fact check me, I don't know. I read the story like 20 years ago, but in the 1800s, a man in Nebraska tried to sue God in court for crimes against humanity. But the court rejected the lawsuit because God doesn't have a mailing address. So they rejected because they couldn't fill out the paperwork.
There you go. All right. Well, on that note, where can we find you? How can we connect? Where can we get your book?
Yeah, so all of my books, including the one we talked about tonight, Alchemy of Imagination, The Power of Your Mind to Transform Your Life, they are up on Amazon, exclusively on Amazon. So you can get them there. And you can find me on TikTok at Sami Moog, SAMIMOOG. And that's it. I'm only on those two places, Amazon and TikTok.
I love how you...
Really? No website? Nothing?
I have a website, but it's not... I do astrology readings, so you can find me there. It's solarconsulting.com. That's SOULAR consulting.com.
I'm a Libra. What should I do today?
You're a Libra. What should you do today? Eat the competition for breakfast. Do that today. Do it every day.
All right.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
All right,
You're
let's
so
do it.
Funny. Sami, thank you for being here and sharing this. It's really fun. I'm a big fan, and I have shifted my spiritual practice since being introduced to your work. So I'm really grateful that you chose to spend time with us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. And it was such a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thank you, Sami.
Did you enjoy that?
I did. And it's funny because he was like religious, spiritual, and blah, blah, blah. But then he's writing algorithms and he's like, the scientific part of him is in there too. And he's just such an interesting guy who's just leaned into discovering all of this stuff and whatever that 1-3 designer.
Human design. Yeah.
Human design stuff you were talking about.
That's my jam. I'm certified in that.
Yeah, he has to share it because that's just who he is. And I totally understand that. So I thought it was an amazing conversation. Yeah, it was a little different than the one we normally have with our other guests in a very good way. It was just like, instead of telling the story of how the practice was used, he told the story of how he discovered the practice.
Yeah. And how we're all using it and experiencing it. When he says, you can believe that water's not wet, but if you get in the pool, you're going to be wet. Whether you want to say you're wet or not, that is in fact what's happening. And so all of these interviews we do, they're bringing these things to fruition, whether they know it or not. And one of the things I really loved was it all comes from this place of, look, do you? Like, if you're not going to believe this, that's fine. It's still happening, but you don't have to know that, you don't have to buy that and believe. There's no judgment. There's just like, let's just all show up and be kind and by the way, if you want to manifest things in your life, like, you have all the power.
Damn straight. I like the idea of, I mean, even if it is just a mindset, like, who knows what's right? Who knows who's wrong? There's however many religions there are in the world, and so many people are atheists or agnostic or whatever the case is. But the common thread among all of this is just that we exist together, and we're connected through whatever the interpretation is, a vibration, spirituality, calling, all of this stuff. So I just love the ability to fine tune your focus. And you may believe that we have many lives. You may believe in a heaven or not. You may believe this is our one existence and we were strictly evolved from apes. Whatever the case is you believe, right now you're living in the moment. So just like fucking make the best of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You get to choose.
I forget exactly what he said his middle school principal would do during the morning announcements. It was something like, you know, this is your day. You get to choose what kind of day it's going to be, or something like that. And, you know, how many times have you heard throughout your life, oh, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning?
For sure.
And I think that's case in point, right? Like, once you set the tone, you roll over and you look at something crappy on your phone, or you just decide that, you know, the coffee spilled on you or the soy sauce on your pants is going to cause you problems, then the rest of the tone is set. Right. And because we are connected, that energy is contagious, positive and negative.
Absolutely. Well, what somebody said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the truth. Like, if you decide something is true, it's what we talk about every single episode. You're going to shift the way you show up in the world, and it will be true.
Yes.
So I'm into it. I think it's really fun. He's fun on TikTok. And it fits in so nicely with what we're doing here. So I would personally love to ask listeners to share. Will you share your thoughts? And do you do active manifestation, visualization? What did you learn? What are you going to start trying? Can you tell folks, Alan, how they can tell us all this fun info?
Yeah. Slip into our DMs on Instagram on Was It Chance, or shoot us an email on Gmail, which is or shoot us an email at wasitchancepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll respond. We'll let you know what's up.
We will totally respond. Folks, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. You've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out.
The pandemic has been hard on all our kids. New studies show more than 1 in 3 children who started school in the pandemic now need intensive reading help. That's right. Millions of kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade in the United States cannot read at grade level. Here's the good news. Your child can be reading in just 30 days, guaranteed, with Hooked on Phonics. Even if your child has been struggling, Hooked on Phonics will teach your child to read in just 30 days, guaranteed. And right now, you can get started for just $1. Text the word GRADE to 323232 right now. Hooked on Phonics is highly effective and incredibly fun, and everything can be done right from home and in less than 20 minutes a day. For more than 30 years, Hooked on Phonics has been the proven learn-to-read program that kids love to use. Text GRADE to 323232 and teach your child to read in just 30 days, guaranteed. Text GRADE to 323232 right now and get started for just $1. Text GRADE to 323232 now. Text GRADE to 323232.